Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrin, and somebody yesterday asked me on the live stream, hey Dalrin, how do you get good at PvP? And I told them they were asking the wrong person. First of all, I am terrible at PvP, at least that's the way I see myself. In reality, I would call myself halfway decent, specifically halfway decent. We are a little bit late into the expansion of Legion. It looks like we are in the final raid, and we are gonna have apparently season 7 and 8 for PvP. But for the most part, the guides that for PvP, for example, basically whatever you used last season or even last patch applies now. There isn't a lot of changes regarding PvP and Legion, and I really hope in Battle for Azeroth they do a lot more in terms of reordering talents and honor talents. Let's say some honor talent is barely used, buff it or replace it with a new one. Some classes doing really bad single target or sustained damage, and it'd be kind of cool to see some classes that, let's say like Outlaw, doesn't do a lot of sustained damage, all of a sudden they got a massive sustained damage buff, but then burst got nerfed, so then the spec can feel more consistent and even throughout the game. Stuff like this, I'm kind of hoping for Battle for Azeroth, but if you're looking at Legion, let's take a look at Outlaw. I feel like looking at Outlaw and what I do in regards to Outlaw, how I try to get better at the spec, is a fairly decent example of what you can do in terms of playing whatever class, whatever spec you're playing. So this video should apply to just about every single class and every single spec in the game, in terms of figuring out how to improve at that specialization or that class. The first thing regarding PvP is you gotta understand what class you're playing and what does your class do. Now, I thought Legion did a fairly decent job making their spec identities really unique and different from one another. The specializations they put in the game and how they play are all awesome, and Outlaw is no different. I love the way Outlaw is played, whether it has advantages or disadvantages, but a lot of people forget that before I'm an Outlaw Rogue, I am first of all a Rogue. Now, what is a Rogue, primarily? A lot of people that don't play Rogue probably describe them as pussies, or probably describe them as cowards, always hiding, always stealthing, that they have a million stuns. But yeah, let's take a look at what rogues are. We start out in stealth, so we should get the opener. We have a plethora of CC, from saps to blinds to stuns. We can stun more than one target, so we can control more than one target. Let's say blind the healer, stun the DPS, try to kill the DPS, force trinkets out of players. Besides all the CC, we also have great burst, and that makes us a great class to play in 2s and 3s. We're fairly self-sufficient in terms of our cooldowns. We have like the all or nothing cooldowns with our evasions or parries, cloak of shadows, vanishes. We have fair decent amount of mobility. We're really kind of, if you think about it, almost like a Swiss Army knife. But Rogue is also at the same time a fairly high skill cap class, because we have two different resources to work with. We have the energy resource, which is limited and has a limited recovery to it. Then we have the common point resource to invest our abilities into. So we build common points, spend them, build common points, spend them. And with the crowd control that we have, the mobility, the defensives, it kind of just lines up together into a coherent class. So first things first, before anything, when I go into an arena or a battleground, before anything, I am a rogue. I control, I sap, I blind, I stun, I try to line up bursts together, I coordinate cooldowns, I pop cooldowns in order to avoid certain parts of the mechanic, I vanish if I ever need to, I control more than one target if possible. So I'm a rogue. That's the first thing that people don't realize when they look at Outlaw. It's a rogue like any other. They just play slightly different than, let's say, Subtlety or Sass. Now that we established that we're a rogue, obviously, let's take a look at what Outlaw can do in the game and how Outlaw is different from other specs of rogue and what makes it unique. I'm going to give you guys a bunch of cons, reasons why you shouldn't play Outlaw that a lot of people will tell you, and then kind of how I view it. The first one is about roll the bones, and the fact that people say Outlaw is an RNG spec. You kind of have to hope that you get buffs that actually help you deal damage. So your damage consistently is either going to have damage or no damage. And it's kind of true, but not really. In reality, Outlaw Rogue has 6 different buffs, and 5 of them are a damage increase. Only one of them is actually kind of bad, and it's not even a bad buff on its own. The buff I'm talking about is Grand Melee. It gives you 25% extra leech, 55% auto attack speed. It's not a good damage increase, but it's not a terrible buff either. It's not like it makes you take 5% extra health damage for every attack that hits you or something like that. Every other buff is a damage increase, from energy regeneration to crit chance, to saber slash proc chance, to extra common points, to simply higher cooldown reduction, which lets you use your common points a lot more efficiently and get your cooldowns back a lot faster. So all the buffs that you have, yes, they are RNG and people don't like it, but technically every single buff is an advantage for you, and you can use all these buffs to change your playstyle slightly to your advantage. For example, let's say you get broadsides. What does that mean for you? Every single saber slash, every single pistol shot adds an extra calm point, but it also works into your gouge. Your gouge generates a calm point when you gouge an enemy target. So when you gouge now with broadsides, you get 2 calm points for a gouge instead of just 1. If you, let's say, playing with another rogue for 2s and you open with an ambush when you get that buff, you get 3 buffs out of your ambush. Then saber slash, and you can go into a run through or into a stun. You have a lot more calm point generation, and you can use it a lot more efficiently and a lot more often, is what I'm trying to say. Now, the next one that's a negative about Outlaw, and this one you can't really run away from. People say that Outlaw has no sustained damage, and they would be right. Outlaw doesn't do a lot of sustained damage compared to, let's say, Subtlety or Assassination. Your sustained damage is basically null. You are all about lineups and burst. What helps you do this burst is a simple ability of Tricks of Trade, which is an honor talent, which you should always use, Thick as Thieves. Tricks of Trade with Thick as Thieves as an honor talent allows you to put Tricks of Trade on a friendly target, and as soon as you land damage onto an enemy, Tricks of Trade triggers and gives you a 15% buff for you and the friendly target that you use Tricks of Trade on for 6 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. So while Outlaw doesn't really have a lot of sustain, the fact that you can buff a friendly target by 15% of damage is actually insane on its own. 15% more damage. Imagine if you just had an ability, pop it 15% more damage on its own. So Outlaw, in a way, brings a team burst from a simple ability, and when you combine it together with actual massive cooldowns, let's say I have Pop Plunder Armor, Artifact Weapon, Adrenaline Rush when I'm bursting, and I have Tricks of Trade up, the damage I can do, I can almost one-shot a class, depending on who it is. Of course, plates are not really one-shotable, but anything below a plate, like a mailwear, leatherware, or a clothy, without a trinket is actually one-shotable. So it's hilarious, and when you combo this burst with classes that already do good sustained damage or good burst damage on their own, like a Subtlety Rogue, the amount of damage you do is actually hilarious. It's ridiculous. Imagine having a Destro Warlock with a massive Chaos Bolt full burst available, and then you Tricks that on top of that. Imagine a Fury Warrior going through a Rampage Artifact Weapon burst, and you Tricks on top of that. Imagine a Woundwalker going through the full Serenity Burst chain, and you add Tricks of Trade on top of that. Like, it's just insane amount of damage that you can pull out of nowhere. So that's one of the advantages and disadvantages of Outlaw. While you don't have good sustain, you're all about lineups, you're all about burst damage, you're all about trying to line up cooldowns together in order to burst down the enemy with your team. It's very much a team-based class, a team-based spec. So you can see some of the, while some people look at the specialization and say, oh, it's good at this but not good at that, that doesn't always have to be like an end-all be-all type of deal. You can have a specialization that's good at one thing but not that great at another, and it kind of just, the things that it's good at is something you can make up for whenever you have things that you're kind of bad at. Now, the last thing is people complaining about long cooldowns for a lot of Outlaw Rogue abilities, and what people don't see when it comes to the advantage of Outlaw. Some people told me, hey Dal, Outlaw doesn't feel mobile, I feel like my grappling hook cooldown 30 seconds is way too long, I'd rather play Subtlety. Or, hey Dal, I feel like Adrenaline Rush 3-minute cooldown is a bit too much, I'd rather have a 1-minute cooldown of Shadow Dance. What a lot of people don't realize is the cooldown reduction mechanic for Outlaw. Generally, for every common point you spend into a finisher, be it run through between the eyes or roll the bones, you shave off a few seconds off of every single major CD that you have. You shave off exactly half a second per common point spent. And with True Bearing, adds another whole second to that half a second. So it'll be, with True Bearing, 1.5 second cooldown shave off for every common point investing into a finisher of any kind, making Outlaw a spec that can powerfully do a lot of things. For example, your Adrenaline Rush can turn from a 3-minute cooldown if you're really good and efficient at spending your common points and generating them. 3-minute cooldown can turn into a 1.5-minute cooldown, maybe even 1 minute if you're really good at it and really lucky. Something like Between the Eyes, which is your ranged stun, can turn into a stun lock rotation. I love to do this whenever I get True Bearing as my buff, which is the cooldown reduction, and I use my artifact weapon together, and Adrenaline Rush and all the other cooldowns put together. You basically turn into a Subtlety Rogue with your lockdowns. Like Subtlety Rogues, they use Shadow Dance and Cheap Shot the enemy back to back. But for Outlaw, it's a little bit different. When you get your buff together and you get the right cooldowns together, you can go from a full between the eyes, which is a ranged kidney, full between the eyes, into a half between the eyes, so full kidney at half duration DR, into a fourth between the eyes. So you can get 3 technically ranged stuns, range full kidney worth of stuns, back to back to back into a singular target. And when you're able to line those cooldowns up together, it is absolutely hilarious to watch enemies just get locked down for so long. I mean, imagine a 6-second stun into a 3-second stun into a 1.5-second stun. Subtlety Rogues can't do that even. They can do Cheap Shot or a Kidney Shot, Cheap Shot, which is not as long. But it's hilarious to just lock somebody out for so long because you're playing Outlaw. Same thing goes with Grappling Hook. A lot of people tell me that Grappling Hook is too long of a cooldown, but you can reduce it honestly to maybe 15 seconds average of CD if you're using common points properly. So to be able to Grappling Hook at 15 seconds is fairly comparable to Subtlety, who has 2 charges of Shadow Step at 24 seconds each. So in a way, Outlaw is only as good as the player that's playing it. And with that, that's really concludes everything that I need to talk about Outlaw and my approach to the specialization, how I had to, figure it out, what I did, the steps that I took in order to try to understand Outlaw better and better. This didn't happen overnight. This took a lot of time. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time playing whatever spec you are choosing. But this is why I tell people, play whatever spec you have more fun with. Whether is the best spec in the game, the strongest for PvP, or the worst, you're gonna have to spend time into it anyway. And when you're playing a spec that you absolutely love to play, the time spent into it doesn't feel like a waste. It doesn't feel like you have to take time away from important things because you are playing something you're enjoying. And it's important to enjoy what you're playing, or play what you enjoy. One or the other. Hopefully this kind of commentary helped give you guys a little bit of understanding of what I do. I'm basically trying to do like a teach a man to fish and you'll feed him for life kind of lesson. Trying to give you guys examples of what I do to approach a specialization that I play, because the best way to get better at something is to understand it, not just look up at a guide and figure out, oh, you press 1 then 3 then 5 then 2 then 3 and then you win. No, it's all about understanding the spec through and through, from the top to the bottom. That's the only way to get good at it. And hopefully with this methodology, you guys will be able to take it and apply it into whatever class, into whatever spec you're interested in learning and getting better at. And hopefully this helps you. Of course, practice is perfect, so practice, keep practicing every day. I keep trying to play my Outlaw at least once a day, every single day, just so I never get unused to playing Outlaw and the playstyle of it. And yeah, that's really about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you found this video helpful. I don't know if it was topical because it is, again, late into the expansion, but hopefully this video helps 1 or 2 of you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed the background footage of me and Sav just doing some arenas. If you want me to cover any of these specific games, I guess I can. I have some 2200 games to show you guys. I thought they were hilarious, so I might do that like Zarya style. I don't know how I want to approach it yet. Thank you guys again. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to help my channel grow, giving the video a like helps as well, because YouTube promotes videos that get a lot of likes or any kind of attention. If you guys have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And if you haven't hit subscribe, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification button next to the subscribe button. And this way you'll be able to catch every single live stream I do and catch every single video that comes out, which is 2 videos a day. And without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next one.